In the middle years of the 16th century, when Europe was gripped by superstition and the slow tremors of humanist thought, a child was born in the small provincial town of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. His name was Michel de Nostredame, though history would one day reshape it into a single, resonant title, Nostradamus. To some, he was a visionary, to others, a fraud, and yet more, he was something far more subtler, a learned man caught between the rational light of the Renaissance and the shadows of medieval prophecy. Welcome to History Unpacked. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. We post every week and we welcome any feedback. Michel entered the world in 1503 into a France riven by disease and by religious anxiety. His family of Jewish origin had converted to Christianity a generation earlier, a pragmatic act at a time when suspicion followed those who clung too tightly to the old faith. His father was a notary, an educated man, and his household valued study. From the beginning, the young Michel was immersed in learning, taught Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, the languages of both scholarship and mystery. At 14, he was sent to Avignon to study grammar, rhetoric, logic, and mathematical arts. But the university soon closed its doors when the plague arrived, sweeping through the narrow streets like a black wind. It was a pattern that would recur throughout his life, reason interrupted by pestilence, progress halted by panic. He returned home and when the contagion subsided, resumed his studies in medicine at the University of Montpellier. There, in those vaulted halls, he absorbed the formal learning of Galen and Hippocrates and also began to question it. It is said that Nostradamus was expelled for practicing apothecary work, deemed beneath the physician of standing, but he continued his medical career nonetheless. In the 1520s and 1530s, France suffered outbreak after outbreak of plague, and the young doctor travelled from village to village, tending to the sick, grinding his own herbal remedies, and rejecting the traditional doctrine of bleeding and purging. While others fled, he stayed. His methods, fresh air, clean sheets, and rose-based tonics, seemed remarkably effective for the age. Word of his skills spread, and with the aura of a man both scientific and strange. It was during these years he married and had children, yet tragedy stalked him. His wife and children perished, likely to the same pestilence that he had fought so diligently. The grief was immeasurable, and it drove him into years of wondering. He roamed southern France and northern Italy, a solitary scholar, collecting fragments of medical lore, astrological charts, and occult texts. It was an age fascinated by the alignment of stars and by the notion that celestial movements mirrored human fate. For Nostradamus, astronomy and astrology were not superstition, but complementary sciences. One studied the heavens as they were, and the others as they affected the world below. By the 1540s, he settled again in France, in the town of Salon-de-Provence, where he remarried and began to lead a quieter life. But his reputation had already taken root. He published almanacs, annual guides that mixed spiritual and practical advice with astrological forecasts, and these became immensely popular. They spoke of weather, harvests, and the fortunes of kings. At a time when printing had begun to democratize knowledge, such works spread swiftly, and the name Nostradamus became familiar far beyond Provence. Yet it was in 1555 that he produced the work that would immortalize him, Les Prophecies. It was a slender volume of cryptic verses, 942 quatrains, written in a medley of French, Latin, and Occitan. The tone was elliptical, the imagery obscure. From the sky shall come a great king of terror, one verse declared, another, the young lion shall overcome the old. They seemed less like forecasts than riddles, fragments of a dream half remembered. To modern readers, they appear opaque, but to his contemporaries, The effect was magnetic. The 16th century was an age obsessed with hidden meanings. The Reformation had splintered Christendom, wars of faith loomed, and comets burned across the sky. In such an atmosphere, ambiguity was not a flaw but a protection. Nostradamus could veil his political commentary in symbolism, and his audience could find within it whatever truths they sought. His methods have long been debated. He is said to have worked by night, sitting before a brass tripod, a bowl of water at his feet, and a candle flickering beside him. Gazing into the water's surface, he would enter a kind of trance, allowing images to form in his mind. Whether this was a ritual, imagination, or self induced meditation, none can say. What is certain is that he combined the tools of his trade: astronomical calculation, historical pattern, and linguistic play to craft verses that felt prophetic because they transcended specificity. The Prophecies attracted powerful patrons. Amongst them was Catherine de' Medici, Queen Consort of France, a woman fascinated by astrology and fearful of rebellion. She summoned Nostradamus to court in 1556 to cast horoscopes for her children. Legend had it he predicted that her husband, King Henry II, would die in a duel, a prophecy seemingly fulfilled 3 years later when a splinter from a lance pierced the king's eye. Whether coincidence or prescience, the event sealed his reputation. He became both revered and feared, the physician who read the stars and saw death therein. In the following decade, Nostradamus continued to publish. His later editions of the Prophecies extended the original quatrains, and now his almanac sold widely. Yet, he was cautious. France was now sliding into the wars of religion, and prophecy was a dangerous craft. The church eyed him with suspicion. His evasive language may have been as much self-defense as mysticism. Behind the legend, however, the man remained studious and rather practical. He corresponded with scholars, refined his medical texts, and maintained a domestic life with his second wife, Anne Ponsard. His letters show concern for plague prevention and diet as much as for visions. Even in his later years, he was consulted by nobles seeking guidance, and his reputation for wisdom rather than witchcraft largely protected him. He died in July 1566, reportedly after foretelling his own passing. Whether this was true or added later by admirers is uncertain, but the symbolism suited him. He was buried in a church in Salon de Provence, where his tomb became a minor pilgrimage site. After his death, the Prophecies took on a life of their own. Every century found in them its own reflection. During the French Wars of Religion, they were read as Catholic warnings. During Napoleon's rise, interpreters claimed the emperor's name was encoded within their lines. In the 20th century, as the world convulsed through 2 wars, Nostradamus was invoked again. His Hister, thought by some to signify Hitler, cited as proof of foresight. Yet the quatrain in question refers as easily to the river Danube, anciently known as the Ister. So the debate endures. Was Nostradamus a prophet, a poet, or simply a man attuned to the rhythms of history? His writing style, dense, symbolic, often inverted, encourages projection. It is a mirror in which the readers see what they wish to see. Each epoch, fearing its own downfall, has sought validation in his pages. In that sense, Nostradamus' true prediction may be that humankind will always crave order amid chaos, meaning amid uncertainty. Scholars today tend to view him not as a seer, but as a product of Renaissance humanism, a physician steeped in classical learning, an astrologer operating within the accepted sciences of his age, and a poet who clothed these anxieties in verse. His knowledge of astronomy and medicine was genuine. His interest in prophecy was sincere. The vagueness of his predictions, what critics deride as imprecision, was likely deliberate. It allowed his work to speak across centuries, to remain forever interpretable. That perhaps was his genius. Where others sought clarity, he sought resonance. His verses do not describe the future, they invoke it. They capture the sensation of standing on the edge of an age, uncertain, fearful, and hopeful. In the quiet of his studies, surrounded by star charts and Latin tomes, Nostradamus confronted the same question that haunts every generation. Can knowledge of tomorrow redeem the suffering of today? Even his detractors admired his intellect. Voltaire, centuries later, would call him a man of great learning and acute observation. That his words were later twisted by charlatans and propagandists cannot obscure his original intent, a blending of astronomy, medicine, and moral reflection, an attempt to read the patterns of nature as one might read the pulse of a patient. In the end, Nostradamus remains suspended between myth and scholarship. His story is the story of the 16th century itself, the slow emergence of rational thought from the fog of superstition, the coexistence of science and mysticism within a single mind. He belonged neither wholly to the Middle Ages nor to the modern world, but to that narrow bridge between them. And so his shadows endures. Each new calamity, each war, each celestial event send curious eyes back to those quatrains printed in Salon nearly 500 years ago. They will continue to be read, dissected, and misread because their true subject is not the future, but human fear of it. To study Nostradamus, then, is not to study prophecy, but perspective. His life reminds us that in the Renaissance, knowledge itself was a form of faith, a belief in the universe, however chaotic, could be understood through pattern and language. That he blurred the boundary between medicine and mysticism is no discredit. It was perhaps inevitable in an age that had yet to draw its modern lines.